Welcome to the Be Real podcast with your hosts, Bobby Maximus and Joe Cebula. And today we are aiming the podcast at men over 40, not even men over 40, Joe. You came up with a great term the other day, seasoned men.
Seasoned athletes.
Yeah, men that, let's put it this way, men that aren't in their 20s anymore. And by the way, this could relate to women as well. However, some of the stuff we're going to talk about today is you got to get your ego in check, and usually women are far better at that than men.
Yeah.
When it comes to working out, you guys, you middle-aged men, you think you know everything, but you don't. So we're here to set you straight. Today we're going to talk specifically about light weights and things you shouldn't do with light weights. All right? So the number one thing, Joe, and the goal of this podcast, we are fast and furious, fire hose style, get you all the information you need to be better, and then you are out. And if you are a 40-year-old man, Joe, this is perfect for you because you probably don't have 3 hours a day to be listening to a podcast.
Yeah, you're busy. You got a life.
Not with your wife, not with your job, not with that stuff. So the first thing that I don't want you to do, I don't want you to settle, and I don't want you to be complacent. Here's a story as old as time. The guy that goes into the gym, and you know this guy, he sits on the same machine every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He does 3 sets of 10, and the pin is always stuck at 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever weight he's using, 50, 60, 70 pounds, and he never really goes up. He never pushes himself, and he never advances. And that same person, and again, you know this guy, doesn't change how he looks in 5 years, 10 years. He's just kind of going to the gym, going through the motions.
Well, I feel like there's certain guys, with credit to them, will go hire a trainer. I need a program. I don't know what I'm doing up here. And so the trainer gives them a program. And it's, a month long, 3 months long, whatever it is. And all they do is recycle that program. But the program is on a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, it says you're going to put the pin at 7, you're going to do 3 sets of 10. So every time they get to the end of the program, they just go right back, pin at 7, 3 sets of 10. They go through the program. They come right back, pin at 7, 3 sets. They never, ever advance. They never outgrow that program. They assume that if they show up and they do exactly what's written without fail, that they're going to continue to make progress. And sadly, that's just not the case.
No, you got to push harder. Program doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like I always say, day one of a 90-day program is day one. Day 2 is actually day 1 of an 89-day program.
Yes.
Like if you're doing things right, 30 days in, you shouldn't be the same person. So you've got to advance. My favorite line from these guys is, well, I'm just trying to maintain. And I'm like, what are you trying to maintain? You have a 30-pound gut.
Yeah.
You're horribly out of shape. You're not that strong. You're not that fit. Like, aren't we trying to get better? So again, you always want to push yourself. Now that brings us to point 2, Joe. Actually, let me add something to point 1 here.
Sure.
I don't think you should go for broke because what we're going to talk about in point 2 is checking your ego at the door. But I don't think you have to go from, say you have 70 pounds on the machine to go to 140 pounds on the machine.
Right.
I don't think if you're benching 135 to all of a sudden bump it to 315 because you have some fraudulent memory of benching 3 plates in high school. Right? But you do need to go up and you do need to push your limits. I would say as a safety check to keep your ego in check, I'd say go up 10% a week. Right? So if you did 70 pounds last week, 77 or 80 pounds this week. Then if that goes well, then go to 90. Then if that goes well, then go to 100. But I think the 10% keeps you in check so you don't hurt yourself.
Well, and it scales with you. So on the lighter end, the jumps are a little bit bigger. And as you get bigger and bigger numbers, the changes get smaller and smaller anyway.
Yep.
So it kind of works out. It's a good method.
Yeah. So now number 2, we talked about ego. You got to keep your ego in check. There are no shortage of 45-year-old guys, 50-year-old guys, 42-year-old guys. They have that mentality I just talked about. I used to bench 3 plates in high school. And they go in the gym and they go just crazy from day one. And one of 2 things happen. They blow their knee, they blow their shoulder, they blow their back, they end up with some other injury, or they forget they're not 20 anymore, and they're sore for a month after that one workout, and they quit and they stop.
Or it's the yep, I still got it mentality. They get under that barbell, they eke one out, they tear their rotator cuff and sprain their back, but they go, yeah, I still got it. I don't need to work out.
And I love this. I always say this on Instagram. It pisses people off, but I kind of do it tongue in cheek, but it's true. The male delusion, Joe, is alive and well.
Yes.
That fat slob who's drooling. He's got his tank top on. He's watching NFL football on a Sunday, and he's like, I would have just sacked to the quarterback.
Yeah.
Or they're watching the UFC pay-per-view on a Saturday night. I don't know why he just wouldn't head kick that guy. Oh, okay, here we go. The same guy, Joe, and I'm on this right now, and this is good. It's the same guy that is just up in his feelings that Taylor Swift got featured in the NFL promo. This is just ruining his day and his life. This is the guy that goes into the gym that adds all kinds of weight that just then can't continue the program because of injury or soreness, or they just lose motivation. So respect the lightweights.
Yeah.
Number 2, respect for them when you pick them up. I get they're only 5-pound dumbbells, 10-pound dumbbells. You know how many guys I've known that have blown their back getting a soup can out of the cupboard or trying to like adjust the taps in the bathtub for their kids?
Yeah, like picking a pen up off the ground and getting a groin tear or something. Yeah.
There is something, Joe, and you're a guy, you got a fantastic deadlift, right? What did you do at that seminar? 615?
615. Yep.
When you approach 615 to deadlift that with no belt and no straps, you're turned on. Like you're ready to go. I don't mean turned on in terms of like in a
well, I mean, I do enjoy a good deadlift, but maybe not that much.
I'm talking like your senses. You're ready to lift this thing because you know you could hurt yourself. So you are all in. People's form at that weight is perfect. It's when you're picking up 225 for you.
Yeah.
When you're picking up 315, when you're picking up 275, where you have no real respect for the weight.
Well, think about it this way. If you're gonna pull a 600-pound deadlift, like you don't want to be standing crooked. Like there is a checklist that you go through in your mind when you're lifting at those weights. You're set, your shoulders are back, your back is tight, your belly's on, you know exactly where your knees are pointing. You're picky about where you put your feet, how your grip is supposed to feel. Everything needs to line up exactly right. And you rehearse this. By the time you get to those weights, you've done so many reps, thousands and thousands of reps, that you know exactly how it's supposed to feel. But you go to pick a penny up off the floor, you don't stop, get set, hinge properly, do the whole thing, because it's just a penny. But that's when you're out of position. That's when you're twisting. That's when you're kind of standing funny, and that's when things go wrong. So picking up the light weights and not respecting them, you're more likely to injure yourself. And guys, just because you're not engaged.
And the other thing with that, Joe, is like, guys, you had a lifetime of mileage. Like you and I, again, we're not 20 anymore. It's funny. I can go do jiu-jitsu. I can fight. You know, I was on the Ultimate Fighter at age, 43. I can lift heavy weights. That doesn't bother me. I sleep funny on the couch one night and I'm laid up for 3 days. Right? Like my shoulder, carrying my kid or like playing with my toddler or doing something dumb like that hurts my shoulder. You have a lot of miles on you. When you go pick light weights up off the dumbbell rack, that's when you're most susceptible to injury. Just doing something where you're not thinking about it and you can hurt yourself, because a lot of stuff in your body, like if you've played a lot of contact sports, if you've run your body through the mill, if you've had a physical labor job, if you've sat at a desk for the last 10 years, there's like some connective tissue in your body that's like hanging on by a string. You gotta be careful. So respect the light weights.
Well, and I'll add to this too. There are 3 times when you're likely to injure yourself regardless of the age. And that's when you're not focused, you're moving too fast, or you're lifting too heavy. Those are the 3. If any of those things are off, the likelihood of injury is much higher.
That's exactly it. Now, number 3. So number 1, we'll recap, Joe. Number 1, you got to progress somehow. You got to push yourself a little bit. It's more reps. It's more weight. You can't just do the same thing and expect it to work. So you can't just lift light weights all the time and expect to see a result. You got to improve somehow. Number two, you got to check your ego at the door, and you got to be careful with the light weights. You got to respect it, because you can blow your back again getting a soup can out of a cupboard.
Yeah.
Now, number three, that's going to sound counterintuitive to these points. It's going to be respect the light weights by understanding that light weights can work, and it's probably where you're at. The male delusion being alive and well, Joe, is that, again, and I've said it 4 times this podcast, I used to bench 315 in high school. Good, you're not that guy anymore. Like, you have a memory of what you were when you were 20, what you were when you were 22 or 23. And now you're going in the gym and you're trying to crank the weight through the roof, and you're going to get hurt. The person who's most at risk for this is the ex-professional athlete, Joe, who hasn't trained in 10 years, 12 years, the NFL guy who still fancies himself as a professional athlete, but you're not that person anymore. So don't skip over the light weights. Like, if you're going to do a workout program, right? You've been sedentary for 10 years. You got a 30-pound gut. You walk up a flight of stairs and you're out of breath. You don't have to get fit by January 2nd when you started on January 1st. You can go through the motions with light weight for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you will see a huge benefit, and you will prepare yourself for some actual real hard training in the future.
Yeah, and my personal experience, I mean, pick a movement, do like chest flies, okay?
Yep.
You're doing chest flies. I can do a set of chest flies with 30-pound dumbbells, but it's kind of ugly. I kind of have to fight through it. If I go down to 25s, the movements are much, much better. Yeah. I feel better. I feel like they're working better. So I should stick with that lighter weight until I move up in weight and it feels the way that the lighter weights used to feel.
And do you have to go up, like we talked about in point one, and this is why I say they're kind of antagonistic points or whatever? Yes, eventually you have to go up. But if you've been unfit for 10 years, 2 days isn't going to make a difference.
Yeah.
3 days,
yeah.
Like, it's not going to take you one day to crawl out of this massive hole you dug for yourself. So don't disrespect the lightweights. Like, go through and make it maintainable.
Yes.
We'll end the podcast with this. The reason you're unfit, the reason you have a 30-pound gut, the reason you don't like the reflection that you see looking back at you in the mirror, the reason your wife doesn't want to touch you, it's not because age just came and got you. It's not like you're an elite athlete at 41 and then it was your 42nd birthday and you just fell apart. The reason you're unfit is because you haven't done anything for 2 years. The reason you're unfit is you got complacent. The reason you got unfit is because you stopped caring and you're not consistent.
You're not patient. You're not patient. You give the light weights a chance to work. Like you said, you don't have to make this change overnight. Make it over the next 6 months. Start slow. Because remember what I said, moving too fast, moving too heavy, and not being focused. So focus, slow down, and lift the appropriate weight. That's how you're going to do it. You will get there as long as you keep pushing into that. Every time you show up, you're going to notice like, oh, that felt a little lighter today. Try a little heavier. If the movements feel good, you're moving up. Just pace yourself and be patient.
And like the guy from example one, Joe, that guy who's been to the gym for 2 years, where I will give that guy credit to close a podcast because I want to end on a positive note. Mm-hmm. Yes, he needs to push himself. Yes, he needs to go up. But at least he's mastered the consistency portion. Yeah. At least he's showing up 3 to 4 days a week and is kind of doing his thing. Like, until you can master that, you have no business going heavy.
Right.
So those are the 3 things not to do with light weights. If you like this style of podcast, 10 to 15 minutes, fire hose style, massive amount of information shoved down your throat. You can watch, you can listen, and then you can unplug and go about your business. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn your notifications on, and send especially this to all your middle-aged, seasoned, you're not 20 anymore, friends.